Begin the current Daf Succah Daf and Aleph. Begin on the bottom line of Nun and Beis, but the Gemara continues the discussion of the previous Daf. We had the opening of our Perek HaChalil, which was speaking about the Chalil. So we said in the Mishnah that that's not going to be Deicha, not Shabbos, not Yom Tov. So on that, we brought a brisa that there actually is a machlekes if you play the Chalil, the flute on Shabbos or Yom Tov. On that, Rabbi Yisrael says machlekes in that brisa was regarding the shiur of the carbon. Sure, the Chalil even agrees to the halacha by Mishnah that you're not going to play by the simplest base of Sheba. Machlekes was regarding that of the carbon, and that's because the machlekes is ikashir b'kli or is b'peh. And that's why Gemara is going to continue on to show that it's machlekes tanoim. If you have the primary song, is that with a vessel, and therefore it's going to be for Shabbos, or is it b'peh? Shis kodes baz b'kazach and the chesed time, and the B'chaim b'shem is running today's daf. Something that's discussing today's daf are this idea of ikashir. This that you have a halacha, the carbon tamid, that you have to have a shiur, is that the primary song is with a kli, with the instruments, and therefore it would have a halacha of being Deicha Shabbos just like the carbon tamid? Or is it a shiur as the primary with the singing, and then the instruments are just accompanied? Just like the employment in the base of English prove that a person is eligible to marry into a family of kahana. Does the shiur override Shabbos during regular karbanos or during the she'eva? In the concept we said in the previous daf, is actually going to be contested. The beauty and rejoicing of the Simchas Beis HaShe'eva, the beauty of the Beis HaMikdash that Herod built, the beauty of the community synagogue in Alexandria, Egypt. So the key terms of the concept discussing today's daf are the shira, is the song that they would sing during the Karban Tamid. Ma'ilin Meduchan Leyuchas and Lamaisa. The question about when you see someone performing on the platform in the Beis HaMikdash when they're singing, does that give us reason to believe that this person is Meyuchas, that we can marry him off to a distinguished lineage family? And also Lamaisa, does that tell us that he's obviously a Levi and that we should give him Meister or not? So begin the current daf of Nun Mabez on the bottom line, Omer of Papa. We have had a machlekes, Rabbi Yisrael would explain in the brisa of Ikashus B'Kli or B'Peh. So Rabbi Papa, he says, yes, as we return the top of the Nav Kitanoi, this idea, if the Ikashir, if the primary song that the Levim would sing in the Beis HaMikdash, is it with their voice or is it the instruments, it's a machlekes Tanoim. What's this machlek? It's a Tanya, which actually is a mission that it's Erichin, and it's talking about those who would hold the instruments when the Levim would sing the song on the carbon. And now, who are these individuals who played the instruments? Actually, three machlekes, who is playing the instruments? The first opinion says, Abdi Kahanim, they were the slaves of the Kahanim. That's the Rebbe Meir. The Yisrael says, Mishpachas Beis HaPagrim or Mishpachas Beis Tziparia. That was the name of the families. They were from this place, Emmoyum. That they were what's called Yisrael Meyuchasim. They had the Yichus, they were the distinguished lineage family, and their widows and their daughters would be fit to marry to Kahanim. A third opinion, Chanina ben Atikva, somebody says, no, Levim, they were Levim. But Yisraelim were invalid to be the ones holding the instruments when they were singing the song. Says the Gemara, my love, says Papa, isn't it B'Hakam? This is what they're disagreeing about. The one that says there were slaves, Kersav Hills, Ikashir B'Peh. The primary shiur is by singing. So you could have any shlak, you could have any knech playing the instrument, doesn't make a difference. The one that says the one who played the instruments with Levium, the primary song is with the instrument. That is the shiur that you have to have. That has to have Levium. Says the Gemara, Tizbra, is that really logical to say that this is the machlekes? You're forgetting about there's a third opinion of Yesi. Rabbi Yesi said that there has to be Yisrael Meyuchasim. And Mike Saba, what does he hold? Ik Saba, Ikashir B'Peh. He holds like either one, it's going to be the other extreme. If he holds the primary shiur by singing, and then even the Abadim could hold the instruments because that's an accompaniment. And Ik Saba, Ikashir B'Kli, if he holds the primary shiur with the instruments, well then Leviim in Yisrael Levin, you have to have Leviim do the shiur, not Yisrael. What's this mitlagan? What's this opinion that's holding that is going to be that of Yisrael Meyuchasim? So the other rather says the Gemara, you're right. The Kulam, it's not like Rav Papa said, it's not a machlekes tanoim. Everyone holds the ikashir b'peh, the primary shiur is by singing. So then the Bahab Kamiflikis, so what are they disagreeing about then? In other words, why can't you have a vadim, let's say, according to everyone to hold the instruments? Because the Masa, you're right. It doesn't make a difference. Just this was what was done, and this one says what was done. And just punk, that's what was done. That's what they're saying. So the one says, well, the mine after me. Well, so, okay, they're disagreeing about what happened, but what's the relevancy? Why are you telling me this? Says the Gemara, there is a relevancy. Why? Lama'alin miducha. It's that you elevate from the platform. If let's say they see someone on the platform with the Levium, that you don't have to check after him, leyuchasin, for yichus, and ulamaiser, Meaning you don't have to check when you want to marry him off to a woman that has a distinguished lineage, and you don't have, and also you don't have to check him when you want to give him Meiser Rishon, because most definitely he's a Levi. That's Kamefligi. That's what they're disagreeing about. In other words, it's for this reason that they weren't accustomed to go and put there anyone but Leviim, so that the people shouldn't make a mistake and presume that this person is a Levi and really is not a Levi. As the Gemara explains that this is the Machlekes. Mandam Avadim Hayu contrary, it says that the Avadim, the slaves, were the ones who played the instruments. Ksava Hiyal, Ein Malin. We wouldn't presume, no one would elevate a person, Miduchin, because he's on the platform, Yuchasin, to give him a Chashav Shidduch, V'lo Meiser, and not to give him Meiser, because he holds that people don't rely on the fact. They do check after the person to see when it comes to Shidduchim, and therefore we weren't careful. Then, like we said, the Machlekes was, Hachi Havamaisa, how it exactly was. We're telling you why it was like that. The people didn't care. The Avadim played because no one said, "Oh, he's on the Duchen. Must be he's a no. Could be he's not." People didn't rely on that, and therefore we didn't care. We let Avadim do it. Whereas the Mandam Yisrael, how you according to the one that Rabbi Yossi says that I had to be a Yisrael at least. Somebody held Malam and Duchen liyuchasin. That people would presume when they see someone up there, Mizrach Vans, this guy's up there with the Leviim playing instruments, must be he's a chashuv person, and that's why they weren't accustomed to allowing Avadim over there, because people make a mistake regarding Yichud, and they would marry him off to Ish Yichud when he's not a Yichud, he's an Evet, Avalil Meiser. But if someone's up there, people didn't presume that he's a Levi to give a Meiser, and therefore they weren't careful about having a Yisrael up there, as long as he's a Miyuchas. Because it's what people mistake, it's what people presume. People presume, says Rabbi Yossi, that must be his meyuchas, but they don't presume that he's a Levi. So therefore, okay, they made sure there wasn't Avadim over there, so people don't make the mistake, but Yisrael can definitely do it. And Umanda Amar, but according to the other opinion that held that Leviim, that they were Leviim, so that's because Kisava he held Malam and Duchen Bein Liyuchas and Bein Lamaisa. The people make this mistake that they presume someone is a Meyuchas, they presume that he's even a Levi, and that's why specifically he said that they made sure that Leviim should be one playing instruments, meaning everyone agrees you don't really need Leviim. It's not Ikashir and Bekli, it's Ikashir Bepet. But since people make a mistake, they think if someone's such a superstar, whatever, he's up there and he's playing for the Simchas Vayishayim, whoever it is, he's playing with the Korban, they think he's must be a Grace Epis. He's not. He's a Klein Schwartzberg, but he's an Eved, a Knech. So because of the mistakes people might make, so therefore that's why they made sure, again, according to which opinion, so that personality should not be there. Now, going back on what we said on the previous Daf, we had Machlekes between Rabbi Yossi and the Rabbanan, if the playing of the Chalil, if the flute is Doicher Shabbos. Now, Rabbi Yosef had said, now what was the Machlekes? He said the Machlekes was regarding the Karbanos. And he had said, yeah, the Machlekes was Ikashir B'Kli or B'Peh. If it's an Avodah, it's not an Avodah. But he said, everyone agrees that the music of the She'eva, which is just what he called Simcha Yisera, is not going to override Shabbos and Yom Tov. However, now the Gemara brings Rabbi Yimmer Ba'abba, and he disagrees with the interpretation of Rabbi Yosef. And he says, no, actually, Machlekes B'Shir Shel She'eva. Actually, Machlekes was regarding the song that was played by the Simchas Beis She'eva. And that's the Machlekes. If that flute overrides Shabbos. The reason you do something else, Simcha say Nami Deiches Shabbos. Yeah, even that extra joy that they did by Simchas Beis She'eva overrides Shabbos, because as Rashi explains, since the Simcha is a mitzvah, and by playing a flute, there's no real malacha, it's just a rabbinic issue. Really allowed to play instruments on Shabbos. It's just a rabbinic concern that the string might tear, you might fix or whatever. So it's the Rabbanan. So for the Simcha Yisera of Simcha Beis She'eva, they did allow it. For Rabban Sabri, that we rule like that Simcha Yisera ain't a Deiches Shabbos, no, the extra joy does not override Shabbos, and therefore we don't do Simchas Beis She'eva on Shabbos. Al B'Shir Shel Karban, but regarding the song that they played by the Karbanos, the everyone agrees that it is part of the Avodah, but Deiches Shabbos, and it is going to be Deiches Shabbos. So we have a Machlekes, how to interpret the Machlekes if the Chalil is Deiches Shabbos or not. The previous stuff we said from Yosef that's regarding the Shir Shel Karban, but everyone agrees Simchas Beis She'eva not. And we say no. The next opinion is saying that no, everyone agrees that by Simchas the Shir the Karban it is Deiches Shabbos. Machlekes regarding the Simchas Beis She'eva. And actually, Nesef the Gemara actually refutes Rav Yosef on both points. Who from his interpretation of the previous daf from the following brisa first. Shir Shel She'eva, the song of the drawing of the water on Sukkot, is Deiches Shabbos the Rabbi Yehuda. Chachamim the sages say, At Yom Tov in the Deiches, no, it's not Deiches in Yom Tov. But one thing we see is shiur to Rabbi Yisi, because he had said that even Rabbi Yisi agrees, but the shiur of the sheba is not doicha, meaning the Rabbi Yisi who the opinion says chalul is doicha. Rabban said not. He said the machlokes was regarding carbon the sheba not. You see clearly in the brisa that it's even by simchas b'is sheba the Rabbi Yisi who holds that it's going to be doicha. It says about shiur, it's a refutation of Rabbi Yisi. But the Gemara wants to double down and says, wait a second, Lema, let's say, and this is a question the Gemara is asking. Let's see. B'shir shel she'eba hu depligi, it sounds like, in this brisa we just quoted, their machlokes regarding the song that's played by the Simchas Beis She'eva. But you could infer of the shir shel carbon, but regarding the playing the song by the karbanos, they brought called Deichas Shabbos. It sounds like that everyone would agree that it's going to be Deichas Shabbos. Because it sounds like you only disagree regarding Simchas She'eva, it's only Simchas Yisera. But by the regular karbanos, which is considered part of the Avodah, let's say this refutes Rabbi Yisrael on 2 points. In other words, we should also say that he had said that the machlokes was regarding the carbon, he would give him a dag the Rabban agree, and if it's refuted by both points. One, regarding the Simchas Beis She'eva, he's refuted from Rabbi Yisi, that we see that actually Rabbi Yisi does permit it even by Simchas Beis She'eva. And by carbon, we refute him from the Rabbanan, that the Rabbanan do not disagree by that of the carbon. Because he had said that the Rabbanan disagree even by the shir shel carbon, it's not Deichas Shabbos. So Rabbi Yisi tell you that no. Could be pligi b'shir shel she'eva. Could be, you're right, the brisa is saying that they're disagreeing by the Simchas Beis She'eva, but before the carbon. But maybe they even disagree by the carbon. In other words, you cannot refute them at least from the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan could be would hold that it's not going to be Deichas Shabbos, even the shir of the carbon. Behind the kamiflik b'shir sheva, then why they disagree regarding specifically the shira of the Simchas Beis She'eva? That's l'deacha keich Rabbi Yisi. That's only because we wanted to see the strength of one of the disputants that filled the she'eva. That even by the Simchas Beis She'eva, it's not even a real avodah. Namidach, it's also going to be deicha. But could be the Rabbanan that hold is not deicha, would even hold is not deicha by the carbon. So you can't refute them on both of the opinions. But the Gemara, however, asks on this and ultimately does refute Rabbi Yosef on even the second point too. Because Vakatani learned in our mission that said, Zeh chalol shebeis she'eva. Our mission said this is the flute of the Beis She'eva. She'enu deicha leis Shabbos lo Shabbos, that doesn't override not Shabbos, not Yom. So the Gemara makes the following diak. The inference is, zehu deicha. It's this flute that's not deicha. That's what you're saying, zehu of the carbon deicha. But if you did play the flute by the carbon, it would be deicha. Wait a second, Samani, who is this like? Either Rabbi Yehuda, if you think it's Rabbi Yehuda, can't be. Because Homer he says, Shel Sheva Nami Deicha. We just brought a brayso that says Shel Sheva is Deicha. Elalav, so obviously it is the Rabbanan. That we know that they say by the She'eva, as we just quoted in the brayso, so that's not Deicha. And you're saying Zehu, to say only this one's not Deicha, to exclude that of the carbon. Oh, obviously we see that by the carbon they are Maida, that it would be Deicha. If the Rabbi Yisrael is obviously refuting Rabbi Yisrael on both points, meaning on both Manda Amrim. Again, he had said their whole machlokes was the shiur shel carbon, which means the Rabbi Yisrael holds that, only shiur shel carbon, but She'eva not. We refuted him that already because we see he holds the shiur by carbon. But additionally, he had said that the Rabbanan hold that shiur of carbon is not. We see clearly that no, they hold shiur shel carbon, yes, it's only by shiur she'eva that's not going to be deicha. So you have to see Gemara refutes him on both of these points. And now the Gemara goes back and goes to the source of this machlokes that we started from the previous daf. My time in the mandama, what's the reason of the one who holds the ikar shir b'kli? That the primary song that the Levim would do would be by instruments. Because there's a pasuk in the Yom base. It says Yomei he said lahaloi so oilo lamizbech, to bring up the burnt sacrifices of the mizbech be'es hachei la'oilo, when they would start the oilo. So then heichel shir Hashem echad b'chatzos. Then it would start the song of Hashem with the trumpets by the klei David Malchison through the instruments of David, the king of the Jewish people. So obviously you see that the klei David, where shir Hashem is called, that the instruments are the shir. Says what's the reason of the one who holds that the primary song was with their voices? The Chassidus says the pasuk in the Yom Beis also says that it was like one of the trumpeters and one of the singers to unify with one voice. Now here it doesn't mention any instruments, and Rashi says wait a second, instruments. It says clearly l'machatzim. Rashi says no, those chatzoitzers were not the instruments that they played for the karbanos. Those were tekiyas that they had to make by the carbon coming and Musafim. That wasn't part of the shiur. So therefore there's no relevancy. And therefore, so it's not including the mechatzim. So what does it say? Shiurim. In the shiurim choir, we know, this is giving that's the one thing that they're singing. So you say ikar shir is bepeh. But now they're going to ask, how does each one do what the other one's pasuk? The idach, but the other mandama who says ikar is bepeh, but nami haksim b'yim chizkiyo, it says b'yim chizkiyo, which the pasuk says klei David talks about the instruments. It says Gemara no hachim. This is what the pasuk is saying. Heichel shir Hashem, they started to sing the song of Hashem bepeh, like we're saying, because the primary shir is with their voices. I declare David Melchizedek. It says regarding the instruments of David Melchizedek. That was levasumei kol. It was just to amplify the voice, but it wasn't the primary shiur. The primary shiur was like the pasuk starts off Shir Hashem, as we have a different pasuk that clearly says only oral. It doesn't say that of the instruments, as the Gemara asks on the other one. But the other man also holds Ikar Shir is Bekli, but it says over there like it was one of the trumpeters again, which is not counted. And for the singers, it only talks about singing. He doesn't mention instruments. If Ikar Shir is Bekli, how would it not mention it? So it says no hakim. This is what the pasuk is saying. You're right. It only mentions singers, but it's comparing it to the trumpeters. You're right. The trumpeters are regarding something else, but it's comparing. And just like the trumpeters are with an instrument, also the singers are with an instrument, and therefore it does mention the kli, and therefore again that's the source of the machlekes regarding if it should be kli or the peh. Now we continue with the simchas beis hasheva that we started in the previous mishnah. Whoever didn't see the joy of the house of the drawing of the water on Sukkah, he hadn't seen joy in all his days. Now, the Mishnah tells how this was done. The Matzah Yom Tov Rishon Shechag, at the end of the first day of Yom Tov Sukkot, so Yardu, they would go down, meaning the Kamel Levim, they would come down from the Ezras Yisrael, which is a higher part of the Beis Hamikdash complex. They would come down the Ezras Nashon, to the courtyard of the women, which was lower down on the slope of the mountain, because we know it was Hamari, it was on a mountain. And they made over there a great takana, which you must explain what was this great institution that they made. Now, the Menorah Shel Zav Hayisham, they were these golden candelabras. There were these 4 bowls of gold on the top, meaning on the top of each one of these candelabras. There were these 4 ladders for each and every one of these bowls. For each one of these menorahs, because there was 4 bowls on the top of it. And they had these 4 young men, from the young ones of the Kohanim, in their hands were these jugs of oil, that had 120 lug, and they would go up on these ladders, that they would put into each one of these bowls on top of the menorah, which was like this type of picture. We have it on the next one. We're going to see it on the next stuff. Exactly. From the worn out garments of the Kahanim, which was from the tzibur, so they would take the worn out pants, maybe name them, from their belts, from the old Abnatim. From them they would tear and they would make wicks. And that's what they would use to light these big candelabras in the Beis Hamikdash. Now, there wasn't a courtyard in the whole Yerushalayim that didn't get illuminated from the light of the Beis She'eva, because the menorahs were very high, they were 50 amas high. The Harbais itself was very high, and the light therefore was shining throughout the whole city, because the eastern wall, which was the end of the Ezes Nashim, was very low down, as the Gemara says, and the menorahs were very high. So therefore, again, it went over the walls, and there was huge light, these huge bowls of oil filled up, and illuminated the whole. There was no courtyard in Yerushalayim that wasn't lit up from this. Now, Chassidim, Anshe Masa, the pious ones and the men of action, they would dance in front of them as Getintim and Beis, Babuka Shal Or Shabiyadayim, with torches of light in their hands, meaning they would throw them up and they would catch them. And there were those who were proficient that they could take 4 torches or 8 torches, and they would throw one and catch the other one, throw one, catch the other. As we know, the art of juggling, would be juggling these fiery torches. They would say in front of them words of praise and of a song, which Gemara explain exactly what these songs they would say. But Levim, they had the Levim on their harps, with the Nevalim and the Lars, and the Saltayim, and the cymbals, and the Chatzitz, and the trumpet. There was an unlimited amount of instruments. And they would do this al chamesh esrei mailas. This would be on the 15 steps, where the length of the steps was along the width of the Azar. And the width of the steps were a half a amma, were the height of a half a amma. As the Gemara says in Masechet, as the Mishnah says in Masechet Midas and Masechet Yomim of Design and Aleph. So it was on these 15 steps, that went down from the Ezes Yisrael to the lower part of the mountain to Ezes Nashim, to the courtyard of the women. And the gears should be Shir HaMalah Shabbat. They were on these 15 steps, which correlated to the 15 Shir HaMalas that we have in Tilim. Shalem Levim Imdim B'Klei Shir. On these 15 steps, Levim would stand with their instruments, and they would say Shira for the Simchas Beis She'eva, because Rashi points out the duchen that we know that the platform that they would sing for the Shir for the carbon, that was near the Mizbeach. But here by the Simchas Beis She'eva, they stood on these 15 steps. Two kahanim in the upper gate by the Shar Nikanor, shiur me'ezes Yisrael le'ezes Nashim, that's from the ezes Yisrael that goes down to ezes Nashim. They have these two trumpets in their hands. Kara Hagev, the person calls out, Taku Beri, Bertaku, they blow Tekiah, true in the Tekiah. That was a sign that they should go fill up the water for the Nisach HaMayim from the Shiloach, from that spring that was near the Beis HaMikdash. Hegil Lamal Asiris, when they reached the 10th step, so because they're coming down from the top of the steps, so Taku Beri, Bertaku, again they blew Tekiah, true in Tekiah. Hegil Lazara, when they finally reached the ground of the Ezes Nashim, again Taku Beri, Bertaku, they blew Tekiah, true in Tekiah. The Gemara learns out that whenever you make a tekiah, you have a tekiah before and a tekiah after, and you have a true in the middle. So they taku b'riba taku. The hayutaykim mahalchim, they continued blowing by these last 3 tekiyahs that they were blowing. They lengthened it until they reached the gate that leaves from the east, meaning from the Ezes Nashim going out to the Har HaBayis, to the Temple Mount, to the bottom part of the east. That gate is precisely aligned with the gate that goes from the Ezes to Ezes Nashim, and they're going down here now from west to east. And because when you come into the Beis HaMikdash, you go from east to west, going upwards. Now they're coming down from west down to east. When they finally reached the gate that was leaving from the east of the Beis HaMikdash complex, they turned their face around from east back towards facing the west, towards the Azara and the Heichel, to say the following statement. Remember they said, our fathers in the first Beis HaMikdash, they were denying because they were in this place and they did not face towards the Beis HaMikdash. Rather, their back was towards the sanctuary. For them came and they would face towards the east, which is a pasuk in Yechezkel. And they bowed to the east towards the sun, which the sun rises from the east. But to us, to God, our eyes, we worship you, Hashem. Yudam, he says, they actually would repeat it. As he says, they would say, we're to God, and to God are our eyes. Now the Gemara elaborates on this great joy of, as we know, term in the Brisa, Mishlei Ros, it says a lot of Mishlei Ros, starting with one from our Mishnah. Mishlei Ros, whoever did not see the joy of the house, of the drawing of the order, he didn't see joy in his life. So to Mishlei Ro Yerushalayim B'Tafat, whoever didn't see Yerushalayim in its splendor, did not see a desirable city in his life. Mishlei Ro Beis HaMikdash B'Minyan, whoever didn't see the Beis HaMikdash in its construction, in its building, and he built, they didn't see a beautiful building in his life. Which says Mahi. Which one of the buildings? There's Shlomo Melech built the Beis HaMikdash. There's Nehemiah ben Chachaliah in the time of the second Beis HaMikdash, and then you have Hordus, who that was in the time of the second Beis HaMikdash, but he destroyed it. He tore it down and he rebuilt it. This refers to the building that Herod made. He built a beautiful Beis HaMikdash. It says, what did he build it with? Someone always says, he built it with colored marble. Now it wasn't white and it wasn't black, rather it was like a greenish marble, and it was also with white marble. Actually, the Avni Shisha was with green marble, and with kuchla that was dyed blue, and with white. So either it's green and white marble, or green, blue, and white marble. And Apik Safa, the Ayel Safa, the rows of the stones would go in and the row would go out. The reason why it was like that, so that you could put tar, that you could put a lime, you could put plaster so that it could hold the stones. Now, some of the Meshayim B'Dahaba, he thought he was going to plate it with gold to make it beautiful, a gold building. The Rabbanan Shavkid, Rabbanan said, no, leave it alone. This is better like this, because the Meschazik Vasa Diyam, it looks like the waves at the sea, because the stones have a different color one from the other, and the eyes that are looking at it, you start floating over, and it looks like as if they're waves of the sea, which are moving, and it's more psychedelic maybe, but it had more of this beautiful look of the waves of the sea, and therefore they said leave it. Tanya Lin the Bryce is similarly that Yudam, he says Mishlei Ra, again continue on this theme of Ra, whoever didn't see Diufoloston, which is a Greek word. Diu means two. Follow means like ministers, like metropolitan is from the of pol is ministers, and stun is like from styav, which is these double benches. So whoever didn't see this Diu Falu Stein, so it's really 3 words inside of there. In the Alexander of Egypt, didn't see the great glory of the Jewish people. They said, so what this was, there was like this great palace, which is called Basilki, that was styav lefnim styav. There was the bench within a bench. It's what's called Stjav Kafel. And the reason they had this was for the ministers of Alexandria, where they went over there, Yechanan ben Kerach and all the different generals after the Churban Bayis Rishon, in the days of Yirmiyah, when Gedaliah ben Achikam was killed, and they settled over there. Now, even though Nebuchadnezzar came and he destroyed Mitzrayim, and they were killed from the Jewish people who went over there, like Yirmiyah prophesies, but their sons became great in wealth and fame until Alexandria, as we'll see later on, destroyed them. But for a big period, there was a great flourish of Jewish nobility over there. They had these double benches, pa'amayim and pa'amim shayiba shishim riba. Sometimes it was 600,000 times plus 600,000, which were kaflaim creating time. Double the amount of Jews that left Egypt were there in that shul in Alexandria. There were these 71 thrones of gold, correlating to the 71 of the high court of the Sanhedrin, which they made for the Sanhedrin. And each one of these thrones were not less than 21 myriads, which a myriad is 10,000, of golden kikar. That's a lot of money. And it had a bima, a platform of wood in the middle of this shul. And the attendant, the shamish of the tzibur, he stood on this bima. They had these flags, they had these curtains, he had these kerchiefs in his hand. When it came time to enter Amen, where the shlich tzibur went to daven and finished his bracha, but they couldn't hear on the other end of such a big shul. So what he would do is so he lifted up his kerchief, and they would see the thing going on, Amen, which place has all arichas regarding if it's an Amen Yisrael, do you have to hear how does that work? It depends what they're answering Amen for. But they couldn't even hear him. He was so far, but he lift up his kerchief and he would answer Amen. And now also they didn't sit all mixed together, intermingled. The goldsmiths, they sat on their own. Because the silversmiths sat in their own area. And the blacksmiths, they sat in their own area. And the weaver and those who the coppersmiths, they sat in their own area. The gardim and the weavers, they sat in their own area. Now, when the pauper would come into that shul, he would recognize his profession. And he would go and sit amongst them, and he would turn to them, and he would get hired out to do work. That's how he would get his job and the parnasa of his family members. But Amabai says, Bukulu and all these people, Katlino Alexandra's Moitam, they were wiped out by Alexandra of Macedonia, which the Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg brings here on the side from like of the Barbanel to say Malachim that he deletes the word Moikta because he says a clear proof that Alexander over here was not Alexander of Macedonia, Alexander the Great, who was in the beginning of the second Beis Hamikdash. Rather, this Alexander was a Caesar that was 150 years after the Beis Hamikdash. But be that as it may, he wiped out the Jews of Alexandria. So why were they punished? They violated the pasuk in Devarim, which is a very controversial halacha. But it says, you're not supposed to come back anymore to this place, which is Mitzrayim. The Inhadu Asum, and they did. They came back, as the pasuk says, and they came back to Mitzrayim, and they violated this, and they were wiped out. Now, Kiyasu, when Alexanders came, he found the Jews reading from the Torah and Sefer Devarim. It says, God will bring upon you a nation from far away. So Amai says, wait a second, let's see, that person, meaning he was saying the pasuk is referring to him, and therefore it is a decree of the king, meaning of Hashem, to destroy these people. Because they're saying, with this pasuk they're saying, right when I'm coming in, is a sign I'm supposed to kill them. Because I was supposed to come in a boat that should have taken me 10 days, but Dalazika, a great wind came and blew, and it made the boat come in 5 days. Because the pasuk there says, like the eagle flies, that's how quick I came. So he pounced upon them and he wiped them out. That was the end of the Jews of Alexandria. Now we said in the Mishnah that we said, okay, so when did they start Simchas Beis? It wasn't done on Yom Tov. Matzah Yom Tov, the first night Chalamayim. So they went and they did this whole thing, and they went down to Ezes Nashim, and they made this great big takana. Says, my Tikkun Gadol, what was this Mesachta Sham Tikkun Gadol that they did in the Azara by the Semach B'Sheva. So I'm going to it's like what we learned in Mishnah Masechtas Midas. Chalaka Haisa, that really the walls of the Ezras Nashim was smooth. That was B'Rishayin in the beginning, and there was no boards that were protruding out of the walls. But the Kifur Gezustuna, but they actually surrounded it with. They put these pegs in the walls that were sticking out from the wall all around, and all year round they had these planks so that the women could stand on there by the Simchas B'Sheva and they could see. The Skina they instituted that the women should sit on the top and the men on the bottom, and that's the big takana that they said in the Mishnah that they instituted that all year round they should have this upper story to have the women sit over there by the Simchas B'Sheva and the men on the bottom. Which actually talking about when the Bryce actually goes through a little bit how it first happened. So B'Rishayin in the beginning, the women were in the Ezra's Nashim, in the courtyard of the women, which was in the inner area. The men were on the outside, on the whole complex of the Harabayis and the Chel, which was outside of the Azaras. Now, the Kalsrics were coming to frivolity. So the Skinashi and Nashim Yishis Mibachot, Nashim so instituted the other way around. Men that didn't have throw in the rosin. That's it. Men are going to be inside there, then the inner circle, and then women on the outside. But I have they call it a still coming to frivolity. They're coming in, going out. So therefore, that women should be on the bottom, they should be on the top, and men should be on the bottom. Thank you to anytime. That was the takana gedela for that of the union of sneers, and that was a great takana.